All right, welcome into the last Patriots podcast to provide free agency analysis. About 24 hours since Milton Williams signed, everyone else has talked about it. Everyone else has handed grades. Everyone else has reacted, projected, and everything else. Meanwhile, here at Path Interference, we take our sweet time. When we take our time, we like to invite the older guests back. So Mike Giardi of Boston Sports Journal, fresh off of a very early lunch, a walk with his dog, has kindly joined. It is early Tuesday afternoon. You and I are talking off air going, man, something's going to happen. We're recording the old classic self-involved podcaster, media person jinx. Then we also go, there's no one else available. Like, this is kind of it. So you know what? We will do grades today. We will hang out. We will not worry about the breaking news because the Patriots have already handed out 8 free agent contracts, $290 million. More than $150 million of that, by the way, Mike, is guaranteed. So not a whole lot of, the Patriots don't spend. They cannonballed into free agency. These were not splashes. What did I miss?
No, that's good. Yeah, I went corn chips early today. Like I had like breakfast, and then like at 10:30 I was craving some salt, so I did corn chips, and then I had lunch. So when you're old like me, when you're blue hair, gray hair, blue hair, yeah, you gotta feed yourself.
Okay, when I said what did I miss, I meant pertain to the Patriots and football, not
No,
necessarily a
no,
diet.
we're gonna get, dude. We're gonna get to that. Don't worry about it.
Okay. So I heard it somewhere in this glorious clip that went across social media and stemmed from the radio, which, players say this all the time and they're full of it. I don't listen to. But there was an argument made shortly before the Milton Williams news broke. And we're going to talk a lot about Milton Williams, the $104 million man here on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And the Patriots aren't extending themselves. In the aggregate, they're not really spending. At which point they had already spent over $150 million. Which I would love to tell my credit card company, by the way. I'm not spending that much in the aggregate. It's not that big of a deal. I don't owe you as much as you say. The truth is the Patriots both lead the NFL in spending right now by guarantees, total value contracts, which are never going to be seen because that's how NFL contracts work. And they also still lead in cap space. So there's flexibility here, which we'll get to at the very end of this episode, if they want to pursue more trades, which those options are dwindling, or obviously the draft, or whatever they might want to do. So there's plenty of optionality here, but the team largely seems to be set. That said, I want to back up to say Friday, Saturday. You're working on NFL notes. We're all on the cusp of free agency. We've got the whispers and the nuggets and the notes and this and that. And this is your attitude, your philosophy, your approach. You say the Patriots need to do X, Y, and Z this weekend and on Monday. How did you look at free agency for the Patriots right before it started?
So I had prep myself that this was not going to be an awesome week for them because I think in general free agency is no longer I think we have this twisted view of what it used to be in the 90s, early 2000s versus what it's become now, which is that teams know how to manage their cap. They use void years, they use all the tricks, and they look at their players and say, I know this guy and I know how he fits in what we do. So we're going to extend him. Maybe he's not the best piece, but we're going to extend him versus going into free agency and signing someone that we don't have experience with, that hasn't been in the building, that hasn't fit into our locker room, and giving him more money because that's what happens in free agency. You overpay, period, end of story. So, and you saw it started Friday with the trade of Metcalf, Saturday, Sunday, guys are flying off the board left and right. And it had been really for 2 weeks, right? So they franchised Trey Smith. So, it's just the list of guys that could make a massive impact on your football team was small to begin with. And then by the time you got to Sunday night, it had gotten significantly smaller. So I had been of the approach all along, Andrew, that I wanted more volume. Take the big swing or two. Probably going to land one of them because you have this money and you're going to at some point be able to convince someone to take your money. But by and large, take more swings at the middle of the road guys because your roster stinks, and just get guys that are pros. Clearly, culture was an issue and something that they made a point of in attracting in these free agents that they signed, and build the damn floor up. How many guys on that roster would you literally say no, you can't part with him. You can't part with that guy. There's a handful. The roster's just not that good. So I had lessened my expectations, and I will say what they did Monday, better than I thought. So I tip my cap to them.
Expectations is the key word there, right? Like the reason I asked this question is not to just, again, find out every little thing we don't know about Mike Giardi. What were you thinking Friday and Saturday? Tell us about what you had for breakfast on Sunday. It's to
Yogurt.
say when you go into a big event or the draft or pick anything in life, your expectation sets the framework for whatever comes next. How you're going to view the result depends on how you see the process and what you expect going into it. So for the folks who expected the Patriots to land a number one wide receiver and a starting left tackle, should have updated their expectations when Ronnie Stanley comes off the market. I think it was Saturday, resigns with Baltimore, and a deal that looks increasingly bad for him because Dan Moore Jr., who comparably stinks compared to Ronnie Stanley, got
Yeah.
more than that in Tennessee. But if you're happy, you're happy. Chris Godwin, we told you with the combine, this should have changed your expectations as well. The Patriots are going to swing big. They also expect to be down 0-2 in the count and probably not to connect. They whiff in the first couple minutes when Chris Godwin dips his toe in and immediately runs away back to Tampa Bay for all very obvious reasons. So when those guys are off the board, there is no number one receiver or a new starting left tackle available aside from Dan Moore, who again just outpriced himself. You need to reset your expectations. That said, the column I wrote on the eve of free agency said, I get this is a changed market. It's depressed. It's evolving. Seen more trades and re-signings than ever before, at least since I started covering the league. No excuses. You need to get talent in the building. This is what the money's for. It's what the open market is for. And I took a similar approach to you in that the mid-level guys are going to kind of be the gas in the tank, right? The more you get of them, the more likely they are to outperform their contracts. Dante Fowler with the Commanders last year, Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louver for the Commanders last year. Those guys made that engine go along with Jay.
Jeremy Chin. Yep.
But you needed to get a top tier guy, replace the engine. Milton Williams was that engine. You got gas now behind him. And ultimately, that's the best way to look at this. If you've got the cap space, elbow your guys off the table for the top tier free agents and then dive into the middle class. I think you're higher on this, though. And I think I know this because of what we've been texting.
Yeah, I am, because again, I think they had trepidation, and they're never going to come out publicly say this and share this. I think they had trepidation about how this would go. Yeah, we have all this money, but people don't want to come here. We couldn't convince Ayuk last year. Couldn't convince Ridley. There's these things that are happening where we're going to give Brandon Ayuk more money than God. I'm not even returning your phone call. Like, don't care. And guess what? Even though you changed your coach and people respect Mike Vrabel, and even though Drake May showed signs of being, a potential franchise quarterback, you were still 4-13. And guys look at the damn roster and go, it's not good. So, like, if I go there for an extra $2 or $3 million a year, and money does drive, don't get me wrong, but like, it's Foxborough. It's not freaking, I don't know, it's not Miami. It's not Houston. It's not Dallas. It's not whatever, LA. Like, there were so many things working against them that I think they were concerned. And I think that's why the Milton Williams thing to me, which we'll get into, was like, okay, I see you. And I like what you did there. And we can talk about how much of an overpay and all that stuff. Don't care. Don't care. Just like, you had to get him, you got him, and you said you were going to be aggressive and you followed through. So good on you.
And let's be clear. I wrote, if he wants, silly me wrote $22 million a year in that column because that's what I had been told to expect from Milton Williams. And over 20 is you are the elite of the elite in the defensive tackle market. And that's the important context. And we'll give you where they rank in all these different positions. Him, Robert Spillane, Harold Landry, Mack Hollins, everybody here coming up. You had more than $125 million in cap space. You rolled it over from last year. And when you look at free agency, there are only two other avenues to team building that you have, right? One is trade, which they've been reluctant to engage in. DK Metcalf was one example. There are plenty of others this offseason because they understand they don't have any other assets on the roster, which means you have to give up draft picks. And they don't want to do that. They want to build through the other avenue to team building, which is those draft picks. You got an extra third. You got the fourth overall pick. You got plenty of future picks. You don't want to give those up. So if you're not going to trade and you want to hold on to your picks, it has to be free agency. That's the only way to get a guy like Milton Williams in here, and which ultimately matters. The talent is the talent. And for them, because of the market and the history and everything else, was the only way that they could guarantee themselves this level of talent. Understanding you still have a top 4 pick. That's a great shot, but it's not a guarantee. Milton Williams is at least in the building. And he honestly was my biggest takeaway, not so much for the player, the contract side, but for something I'll get to in a second. Your answer, though, to what the single biggest takeaway of everything that happened yesterday was what?
I mean, it's not from what we just talked about. I just think, like, your defense stunk last year. I talk about the roster, but like you went from they were a top 10 defense, but I think it was a little bit fool's gold 2 years ago to 31, 30th, whatever metric you want to go by. They were terrible last year. They couldn't stop the run. They couldn't stop the pass. You could do whatever you wanted against them. Like no matter what Devon Godchow says, enjoy New Orleans. So to me, it was like the best players that are available by the time you get to 12 o'clock on Monday on the defensive side of the football. And so, boom, 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 start picking off guys that are fit, that are playmakers, that are culture guys for you. And now all of a sudden I look at it and say, again, we're in March, but like they're a top 10 or 12 defense if everybody stays healthy. Like, and that's a massive leap from where you were last year and all those close games that you lost that they love to point to. Oh, 2-6 in one score games. The whole league is one score games. But like you put yourself in position now where you can turn some of those games in your favor. And now all of a sudden, 4 wins is 6, or 6 is 7, or 7 is 8. Like, so to me, I like it. Like, again, there's still the big needs on offense, which I know we're going to get to, but like you would talk about pivot. Pivot was, these are the best players. And we got some of them, or we got some guys that are really good fits for the scheme that they're going to run. And that makes a difference.
Yeah, and you could go back to the expectation point of, what was the market? Like elite receivers and offensive tackle just don't hit the market anymore. They re-up and re-sign, as we saw with Godwin, and then Ronnie Stanley most recently, but all the examples go back to CeeDee Lamb almost a year ago, Brandon Ayuk, on and on. Like they're not here. So if it's a defensive class and you got money to burn, build on defense. I'm with you. This was that defense, especially towards the end of the season, was just as much, if not more of a problem than what they had going on offense. Even with the worst offensive line in the entire league. My big takeaway, though, aside from they've rebuilt the defense, there's a floor raising going on there. The Milton Williams signing, as much as any team who changes a head coach or hires a new GM and makes a big announcement, signified a completely different franchise in New England. He personifies how Mike Vrabel wants to play defense now. Upfield, attacking, penetrating defensive front. He personified the self-awareness that has finally dawned on the Patriots. We stink. The roster's barren. We have to overpay. When just a year ago, Robert Kraft is going, I hope we don't suffer. I think we'll compete. I expect us to be in the mix. And it also personified this deal, this person, this defensive tackle coming in. Their willingness now to go to the mat to win bidding wars with top guys, even when it meant risking bag business. Because, as we know, Belichick and the Krafts always loved a good value. Value, value, value. Set a dollar figure for these free agents. If it goes higher in the negotiations, we're walking away. The Patriots did not walk away from Milton Williams. They chased him down and crowned his ass the richest player in franchise history when it looked like he was going to Carolina.
Yeah.
Because he creates pressure the way Vrabel wants, because he plays this new style of defense, and they know how desperate they were. Value be damned. This is Mike Vrabel's team. This is a new Patriots. This is everything we've been talking about, but encapsulated in a single moment that we all just continue to have to recalibrate our expectations for what they're going to do, how they want to conduct their business, and how they're going to get there.
Again, this is why I applaud them for what they did and I wrote this down. So willingness to up the ante on Williams and not be defeated. Like you should have done that with Calvin Ridley. We can debate whether or not his girlfriend, wife, whatever, would want him to come up here. But if you throw $10 million more at him, he probably would have just said, you know what, screw it, I'm going to go there. Right. So you didn't. You set this line, this bar. Like, you're not good enough to set a bar right now. You have to blow through that thing, break it down, and have to rebuild the whole thing. And so this is not only a signal to a sort of a different approach, but it's also, I think, sends a message to the players out there. Like, okay, their business is being done a little differently there than it's been done for 25 years. And, with the exception of the 2021 offseason, which again was the COVID thing. So like, this is good. I think this sends a strong message. And now next year, when you roll into this, if you do improve in the manner in which I think they can, then all of a sudden it's less difficult to find people to take your money, right?
Yeah, because this is a ladder, right? You climb from incompetent to a competent franchise to a competing one to then contending. And in order to get all the way from incompetent to contending, you need to go up those steps. This makes them a little bit more attractive. This makes them a little bit better on the field. This will build towards something. Whereas when you do get to the top, as we've seen, you don't need to go down all those steps. You can just slide right down the ladder. But this is a slow process to rebuild. It can come very quickly, though, to fall apart. So I'm with you. There's a lot of residual value here with the Milton deal, which we're going to grade here in a second. It just there's so much newness around this team, and good for them. Like the margin of error also has to be noted too, right? It's not just that you have the cap room and the cash, and what are you going to do with it? If you screw up, as every GM does, even Howie Roseman, king of the front office anywhere in sports right now,
Mhm.
his margin for error is that he has more time and job security than everybody else and understands the cap mechanics that you were referencing earlier as the cap continues to soar and soar, which it does for everybody. Like that's not as big of a difference here. But because of the time he's afforded, he's able to rebound from his misses. The Patriots can rebound from these misses because of all this goddamn cap space. Like, use it. You have a rookie quarterback on a cost controlled contract. You rolled over cap space from a year ago. You're going to eat into your cap space, not in 2025, but in 2026. That's fine. That's when you fill out your value signings and your needs and really hone in. Right now, you had so many needs. You should have taken a lot of the best players available and understanding some of them are not going to hit, but the ones that we do hit, great. We'll move on to those who don't and fix them next year and hopefully in the draft where ideally, and they're not here yet. I think they should take a receiver or an offensive tackle with the fourth pick or wherever they pick in the first round. But ideally, you go into the draft saying we're going to take the best player available. They're closer to that, much, much, much closer to that because of how different they are today than they were on Sunday due to all these signings.
Yep, and I would still say that there's probably a few more moves that can be made here in the next whatever, however long you want to drag this free agency period out, another week, 2 weeks, whatever, where mid-level to lower end veteran type football players that come in, and if they don't make the team in August, we swallowed $2 million, whatever. Like you, again, because of the space that you have now,
Yeah.
you have some flexibility. No one wants to do that, but like that's just the nature of the beast to create the competition that they have lacked on their roster for some time now. Like guys like Jalen Polk and Javon Baker, you got to go earn it. And like that's an area which they obviously have to continue to address, but like that should be the idea. Caden Wallace, you don't just get the right tackle gig. You got to go beat out someone who's done it and done it at a high level for a long time. Now, he's old, but like he knows every trick in the book. So go do it. And if you do it, great. Okay, we made him, Morgan Moses. Did we end up eating that contract in some way, shape, or form? Sure, whatever. It's not the end of the world.
Morgan Moses. I have warmed up more to that signing than any in recent memory. I don't know what's happening. I don't know if it's due to the overload of caffeine, me staring at this same stupid screen for 14 out of the last 16 hours or 24 of the last 30. I don't know. I'm coming around on Morgan Moses the way that I never expected to.
I was cross-eyed by the end of last night. I tried to watch TV at like 10 o'clock and I was like, nope, this is stupid.
Yeah, but
Just close your eyes.
Rightfully, no one wants to hear about us and our plights on a Monday in free agency when we are the ones to kind of text and figure out and report and do all this different stuff. Like, yeah, it's a pain in the butt, but I've learned my lessons. If you want to complain, listen to the All 32 podcast.
I want sympathy.
You can get none from me, sir.
Yeah, sure.
I said it now, but this is up for debate. The degrees to which the Patriots are different now than they were Sunday. Indisputably, when you get a new starter, defensive tackle, corner, inside linebacker, outside linebacker, and now right tackle, with backups at D tackle, receiver, and quarterback. We haven't even talked about Josh Dobbs. Like, he's not on the rundown. Spoiler alert for the folks listening, but you and I can hit on him in the very end.
Yeah.
How much different are they? Like, is this a team that should not expect to pick in the top 10 next year? Also understanding you're going to get that big Drake May year 2 leap, much better coaching staff, yada, yada. Like, is this appreciably better? Is it a little better? Is it the expected leap? Where are they in your eyes?
They're a better team.
Well, thank you. Yes.
Yeah. No. But so what I was going to say, and I'm just going back to your quarterback thing. We all expected CJ Stroud, who had a phenomenal rookie year and went to the playoffs in his rookie season, to make a leap this year. He went backwards. Now, not most of it, not on his shoulders. Like there's he made some decisions. He started to, I want to say he was very conservative in year one, and he started to throw to spots where he didn't in year one and paid for it in year two, but their offensive line was a disaster. So I think quarterbacks can be a little bit more tricky to project. And look,
Bobby Slowick got fired this year. So like his offensive line and his offensive coordinator were just out to lunch, it seems like, this entire season. And that's obviously going to affect the quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, they just traded their left tackle. They released their right guard and they just traded their left guard. So like, that's a massive turnover in the span of 72 hours for the Texans. So I would be surprised if it's just straight to the moon for Drake. I foresee a bit of a roller coaster because again, they're not they haven't gotten there offensively. There's still a lot of pieces to go. They should be better coordinated. I think the coordinator and Josh McDaniels knows better how to handle one bad spot on the offensive line. We'll see if that's all they have. They could still have three. Like that was a big issue for Alex last year, right? It's you can't coach around one spot. You have three that you have to worry about, sometimes four. So they're better, but there's still a lot of work to be done here to get it to a point where I can definitively say they're not picking in the top 10. And I know that's not what people want to hear because people want the Washington Commanders of last year or the Texans of 2 years ago. And I will say on both those cases, Washington's roster was better than yours before they did what they did last year in free agency. And then their quarterback turned out to be, Prince Charming of the whole freaking draft, like just had a phenomenal year. The year before with the Texans, they had turned over their roster for 3 straight years, fired 2 coaches after 1 season, continued to suck, continued to draft high, continued to take swings on players, and finally, with the addition of Stroud and Will Anderson, took it to the next place in Stroud's first year. It's really hard to do, and your roster was at a much lower point than either one of those 2 teams are. I still think they're almost like a year away from being that type of team, but we'll see.
So relative to the average free agent class, whenever all of free agency is done, I'd say whatever you projected the Patriots to be, if they had just done the normal thing in free agency, added the average talent of all the teams done business so far, say they were projected to be 6-11 with this theoretical team. I think they got an extra win out of these guys. That's where I'm at. I think 7-10 is reasonable here, and there are a lot of places to fix. We still have to go to the draft. I do think they'll be active or make some calls in the trade market, which again, it takes 2 to tango. DK Metcalf did not want to come here, as he described a not very desirable play. I don't know what he said about Foxborough. Clearly wasn't about the warm weather though.
No.
And you have reported that there were some character concerns, all these different things. This is just to put this to bed. It's not to completely get sidetracked here. It's just to say it takes a lot to pull off a trade, and more than I think people involved know, or on the outside know, compared to those who are involved, to actually just sign a player. So the point is, they did sign all these players. They could still add via the trade and in the draft. I would still like to see them add a viable, at least spot starter at left tackle, because that's a glaring hole. Receivers a glaring hole. Into the teams you just raised, they had those positions solved when they made those leaves to support their young quarterbacks. So obviously we're outstanding as we expect Drake May to be. The other thought I had in mind now escapes me, but we will move on until I inevitably remember it as we were grading out Robert Spillane or doing something much less important.
Who's old on this podcast?
I think it's just from spending time with you. There's some sort of osmosis going on, or just exposure. This is not good for me. All right, I'm going to take a second to recover with this quick break, and when we come back, free agent grades. Enough about free agency. Enough about the draft. No more mocks. No more rumors. No more whispers. No more mailbag. It is time to talk not about football or anything like that. Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app, because when I'm not on this podcast and I'm sitting at home and I'm watching the Celtics, or it could be a hockey game, or it could be a baseball game. Sox are just around the corner. I am playing Prize Picks, and I am winning. And I would like you, as someone who supports this podcast, to win a little bit too. Because right now at Prize Picks, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash and run your game all season long. When you build your lineup, you know the deal. 2 to 6 players, all right? Every single time you go to Prize Picks, online or on the app, you'll see a player, and they'll have a stat. And all you have to do with your lineup is pick the player, go more or less on that stat. It could be Jason Tatum, 5 threes. If you think he'll hit him more than 5 threes, he's going to hit more. If you think Kristaps Porzingis will have less than 18 points, hit less. Boom. That's a lineup right there. So 2 to 6 player stat projections over at Prize Picks. Basketball, hockey, baseball around the corner. Of course, football will be back too. And when you sign up today, if you're a new customer, here's the best part. You get $50. 50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup at Prize Picks. You don't even need to win to get the $50 bonus 50. You just have to play. So sign up today. Download the app and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and you will get $50 instantly with the promo code CLNS after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game.
What's going on, everyone? Taylor Cowles here for CLNS Media with a very exciting announcement. Here at Patriots Press Pass, we will be introducing bonus tiers. Now, this will not affect any of the content that hopefully you've grown to know and love over here at Patriots Press Pass. It's all going to be some brand new stuff and extras so we can connect with you more and also provide you some more in-depth and high-quality content. Hopefully, you guys are going to like it. Here are the tiers and what you should be expecting from all these new bonuses. At Tier 1, we've got Rookie Starter. That'll come with ad-free content, early access to videos, 5% off of all merchandise, and even custom emojis. At Tier 2, we've got All Pro. Once again, ad-free content, early access, 10% off merchandise, custom emojis, but that'll also come with player profile film reviews and draft profiles. At Tier 3, we've got GOAT status. Same as all the other tiers, but it's going to be 20% off of all merchandise, and we're also going to have custom segments, Discord chat rooms with myself and other show hosts, as well as live film reviews with myself and whomever we've got on the podcast for that day, hoping to have some pretty fun guests.
I remembered what I was trying to reach for there a second ago. It was not relevant, so we will definitely discard that, and we don't even have to worry about it the rest of the show.
Nice.
Moving on. Milton Williams. Here's a contract. 4 years, $104 million base value, $63 million guaranteed. Effectively, this is a 3-year deal because in the world in the NFL, whatever the length of the contract is described, you can really lop off that last year because if it's not guaranteed, the team can walk away and wash its hands. I gave Milton Williams a B. You hate that grade. Tell me why.
Because you're arguing with yourself. What did you say? And this again, folks, I'm not going to show you the text, but like we're going back and forth, and I'm like, oh, there's concern about they're spending the money. Well, if they get Milton Williams, one of the responses, like it's a game changer. They got Milton Williams. Not only did they get him, they stole him from Carolina. So we can talk about the money, and I'm sure it's going to be a huge point of conversation on those radio programs that you mentioned. I don't care about the money. They have the money. They spent the money on a player that they needed. It's not just, oh, you put him next to Christian Barmore. If, knock on wood, Christian Barmore is healthy, you have these two beasts on the inside. Milton also can move to the outside if you want to go big. But if Christian Barmore can't go, or if there's a recurrence of those problems, it's not Daniel Akawale, Devon Godchow, and Jacqueline Roy. It's now Milton Williams, another piece. And that, and the draft is very strong in defensive line. I would expect them to dip, if not double dip in that regard. So, to me, especially after the Godwin thing happened, and I didn't think they were going to get Godwin because I didn't think he was going to leave Tampa. But, yeah, go extend. I don't care I don't know what their original offer was. I don't care. I know they got the player. I know they needed to get the player, and they should be applauded for that. And if the player ends up stinking in 2 or 3 years, you can throw this clip back in my face, and I'm still not going to blink because it was the right thing to do at the time. And hopefully, because of his age and the way things are progressing with him from a career track, he embraces this and becomes a Pro Bowl caliber player, which he has the potential to do. So I'm on A-. And I'm so agitated with
to the full A.
It's actually funny as I said that. Then I'm like, I'm so irritated with you for giving that grade that I almost want to give him an A++ for it.
Well, don't do it out of spite. Do it because an A- is not that far from a B, which was my grade.
That's a long way from a B. That's 5 points. 86, 91, 85, 90.
What do you mean 5 points is a long way?
You know what? Fine. A+. And I'm doing it because I believe it. A+.
Okay, good.
Just B. What's a
I
B?
want you to believe what you say, unlike as we continue to reference those other programs that is just pro wrestling on sports radio.
Well, excuse me though. Wait a minute. I got to go back.
Well, let me make the case.
Go ahead, make the case.
This is completely understandable that this guy plays a premium position with a premium skill set of applying interior pressure, which no quarterback on planet Earth likes, by the way. You can be as mobile as any person who has ever held a football. No one likes pressure right in their face. Okay, done. He does that. He does this better than every defensive tackle in the league, except for Chris Jones, according to PFF. He does this at a top 5 rate, according to Next Gen Stats, among all defensive tackles. He dominated the second half of the regular season last year and the playoffs as the best player in the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl. Okay, he's 25, as you mentioned, 6'3", 290 pounds, fits the prototype for this new defense. Okay, he is also a physical freak who ran a 4.6 at the combine just 4 years ago, 34 reps of bench press. I'm so jealous of that, by the way. Someone who's recently back in the 2 plates club of benching and repping
Nice, good for
225
you.
back at the
Good
gym.
for you.
It's been a quick turnaround. That's the only thing I do well at the gym. I would never, ever do a media combine test. It would take me days to finish. Anyway, he had a vertical in the high 30s. Like, this is a rare, physical, talented player. And all the reports are he's an exceptionally high character, hardworking guy, even though he is an outlier in this class and that he has no connection to any of the coaches currently on staff who will be able to say, I can vouch for him or stand on the table. No one needs to stand on the table. His tape does that alone. He's exceptionally talented in a way that you need to be to win. And obviously, the Eagles won big time with him in the Super Bowl. The reason I give this a B, which I will tell you is higher than consensus when you read places like The Ringer, ESPN, even Over the Cap, okay, is that I do not see this contract, which makes him the 3rd highest paid defensive tackle by average annual value, 6th highest in guarantees, and 3rd highest by total value, in a vacuum. Within the marketplace, yes, he's overpaid. Overpaying is a problem. But we are in New England, not a vacuum. And in New England, whereas you and I discussed at the outset to set the proper framework for this free agency, you need to get the talent in the door. And your only avenues to do this are right now really free agency. Trades you shut the door, draft you have to wait for. This is it. They did it. The reason I split the difference between the C's going, this is an overpay. He's never played more than half the snaps in a single season in Philadelphia. He's a bit of a projection, played next to a ton of different players. Oh, and his run defense stinks, according to the PFF, hard as he tries, which is an issue, is that this is more of a projection than most guys who get this type of money. The guys who get his money are Chris Jones at the top, future Hall of Famer. The guys who are also applying that amount of pressure, Cam Hayward, future Hall of Famer with the Steelers. So that's all that I'm saying here. The Patriots have more unknowns because of their lack of connections, his lack of playing time, and the role that he was playing in Philadelphia, which is very much geared towards, we're just going to have you rush the passer. And that's fine because it worked out great for him. And it worked out great for them. They won a Super Bowl. But now he is the rock upon which Mike Vrabel is building his entirely new defense. I don't know if he can withstand the pressure of playing 70% of the snaps because he's never done it before. I believe that he will. He's the right player to pay this young, this talented, if you're going to overpay. But at the same time, it's fair to have reservations about a guy being the highest paid player in your franchise history when he's barely playing 500 snaps a season so far. And that's where we go B.
On the franchise history high payment thing, this franchise has been, they like to save their money. And you talked about it earlier, like how they operated for years. They wanted to win the deal. So like, I don't care. Like, and next year it's going to be somebody else. And then the year after that, it's going to be Christian Gonzalez. And the year after that, it's going to be Drake May, if everything goes well, by a country mile. So like, it is what it is. There is the suck tax. You did have to pay it because you're not good. You haven't been good for a while. You've become an irrelevant franchise. So I think for all those reasons, it's like, again, it's like announcing your presence with authority, to quote Bull Durham, when he wants to throw the fastball and announce his presence with authority. They announce their presence with authority. Take us seriously because the end of the Belichick era and we don't want to spend, or no, we think we're so smart we can coach up these lower level players, the guys you'd never heard of that we overdraft by 3 rounds, that we can do this. Nope. Those days are, or should be, over, and I welcome all of it.
I welcome Milton Williams. He destroyed the Patriots as anyone wearing Kelly Green did last August for joint practices. And the only time we saw the Eagles starters do anything when they were here for that preseason game in day of joint practices.
That was a bloodbath.
Yes, it was. And he's exceptional. There's, again, just guys who get this amount of money, there's a bit more projection, which is also balanced out by the fact that, hey, if you're going to pay a younger guy, which I just advocated for, this is going to be part of the deal. They have less experience. That comes with being younger. It's just, we'll see. A B, by the way, at least in my household, thank God, was a fine grade. So I know I asked Hardy this morning, who was trying to paint this on the radio, failure of an offseason because you don't have a left tackle yet and you don't have a receiver and the offseason's not even done. And I go, okay, when your kids come home with grades, like what's the cutoff? He said B+ or higher is good. I'm like, okay, that sounds good. That's probably where I'll end up as a parent one day. What I would say, though, is everything below a B+ is not a failure. If they come home and hand you a C, which the offseason is not ending right now, but if it did, it's probably what I give the Patriots, maybe CC+. which is different from their free agent class, by the way, because again, we're far, far away. This presumes they make no draft picks, which is, of course, not going to happen. It's not a failure. So a B is well above that. I'm glad to see Milton Williams here. And I don't know. I think we have a compromise here. A 5-point compromise. Oh no, you went A++. So now we're 15
Yeah, no,
points away.
I'm still even after all that you just said there, I felt like at times you were talking out of both sides of your mouth. So I'm still disgusted with you. A plus, A++.
I hope
Had
he
to
can
do
play
it, needed to do it, did it.
better run defense than he did in Philadelphia because he'll have to up here, and I don't know if that's going to be an issue.
Best to me after coming out of the combine and talking to all the people that I did, that he was the best player on the market, period. The one that ended up getting to the market. And I think I wrote that in my takeaway notes from that came out a couple days early because I got home a little bit early from the combine. And that's at that age, that price point is not something that makes me queasy. It just doesn't prevent you from doing anything. Doesn't prevent you from trading for an A+ receiver who wants to make $35 million a year. It doesn't, like they can still do
it's
all
not
kinds
the
of things.
opportunity cost. It's just, again, that if this is the investment, you're the best player on our team, you're our highest paid player in the team, and your run defense is a question, which is going to happen on 45% of the snaps now that you're going to play all those downs. To me, that's an issue. And when you look at also a player who only played 47% of the snaps in Philadelphia, that rest makes you more efficient and powerful when you're pass rushing. He's not going to be afforded that rest. He's not going to be afforded the matchups they got playing next to Jalen Carter. Again, not to dismiss the player himself, but within the context of his production. The guy had only 2 games with multiple pressures through week 9 last year and then took off. Good for him. Those games matter more. They're typically more telling, but it's a smaller sample, and that's where you get a little bit into trouble when you fall in love with a player like this. And instead of the Belichick way, if we're going to get to a line, if it goes higher than that line, we're walking away, and you chase him and you throw more money. I'm not counting the owner's money. I'm just saying he blew away market expectations because they're a desperate team, and it's not a perfect player those guys don't get to free agency.
Right.
A B is fine by me. All right, Harold Landry. We know what he is. He is a new Patriot thanks to a 3-year, $43 million deal with $26 million guaranteed. That is a lot, but it is still just outside the top 15 for edge rushers by average annual value. Personally, as a guy who couldn't get traded, Tennessee looked around, had no takers, and he had a similar deal coming out with the Titans. So this is about what you would have taken on had you acquired him for a year or 2 less, I think. The issue with him not only being 28 is I don't know who you were bidding against for this type of money, given his connection to Vrabel. There was a selling point beyond the money to come to New England. He had a 4.8% pressure rate last year per PFF, dead last among the 95 qualifiers at outside linebacker. He did play excellent run defense. He knows the system. He's a culture guy. BC product for whoever cares about that. He's a good to decent player. Patriots need more of those. But with the money and a guy whose most important skill set, his pass rush, his pressure, doesn't look like it's something in a rebound as he gets older. Now that he's especially not playing next to Jeffrey Simmons, I don't know that I was handing that guy that big of a check.
Yeah, this was to me of the bigger signings that we're talking about. This was the one I liked the least.
Okay.
I just give this a C.
Same.
I think
Yeah.
again, culture was massive for them. Mike talked about it at his introductory press conference. I've talked to so many people inside the organization over the last, however, 2 months, whenever that happened, that Mike became the head coach, and constantly hearing about that. And I mean, I was asked even, well, what did you think of the locker room? And I'm like, how much time do you got? Because I could tell you a few things about how I felt about the locker room and the lack of leaders and just whatever. I don't want to go too far down that road. So I think there's a boost just for that, because he is again considered a high character, good locker room guy. I am petrified of the numbers. Talked to some of the people that I know in Tennessee or were on that football team last year, working for that football team, and they were real concerned about his burst, which is funny because then like Taylor Kyles comes up with some next gen stat that said he was like the quickest get off of any edge rusher last year, and I'm like, I didn't see it, and more importantly, they didn't see it. They thought Arden Key was a much better football player for them last year, coming off the opposite edge, even though he doesn't have the same counting stats that Landry did. The one thing I will give Landry is he's a better run defender than he gets credit for, even at a sort of a lighter weight that he plays at. So I don't know. Do they just trust the fact that they're going to put him in good positions? He's going to be where he's supposed to be, and he's going to continue to get some of these cleanup sacks that he has over the last couple of years, based off of what Jeffrey Simmons does, especially if it's Barmore and Williams on the inside. Maybe that's part of the calculus, but to me, it does feel like I hate overpay. It's an overpay, but it's free agency. It's what happens.
Yeah, and I think when we look at A deals, I should have led with this with Milton Williams. If you're getting an A for a free agent grade from me, it's a great player and it's a great contract. There's neither of these really here with Harold Landry, in my opinion, which isn't to say, again, he's not going to help the Patriots. He will. But the tape matched that 4.8% pressure rate. Like it's great that he has that type of get up. There are so many numbers and tracking and efficiencies and analytics that we have available now. It's harder to separate the signal from the noise as opposed to, okay, what really matters? Because even the traditional numbers, sacks, guy who's had 9+ each of the last 3 seasons, looks great.
Yep.
But you know it, and I know it. A lot of those were cleanup sacks. And so good for him for getting those and maybe triggered some contract bonuses. But there was no team that said those numbers stand out in a way that we'll trade for him. And Tennessee was also happy to get rid of him. So he did. He's here now. I don't care as much about that burst. And again, as a player who's relied on that, because he's a little undersized for an edge, he fits his system. As that goes, so should his pressure. I wouldn't be surprised if he's still in the same neighborhood next year, maybe even a little bit higher. But it's not like he's going to be with the elite pass rushers who were up in the 12, 13, 14% range. Like that is a big drop off. When we talk about 4.8%, you're like, okay, well, what's the frame of reference? There it is. It's about almost a third of the best guys in the league. But it's still an upgrade because we watched this team last year going, who'd they call it for the practice squad?
Yeah, no Titus Leos in situations like this. Yeah. Look, I still think there's probably some things that are going to shake out on the edge and linebacker levels for the Patriots going forward with some of the guys that they currently have under contract that may not be good fits for what they're trying to do going forward. But they adding Williams and Landry obviously improves the pass rush, but I don't think it solves the pass rush. Your pass rush was wretched last year, bottom of the league, and it's better now, but it's not so much better that like you're going to be living on the other side of the line of scrimmage like Vrabel wants.
This is a terrible bit, but let's just do it for one try. Summarize the Patriots pass rush with the sound.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go.
Yeah, there's that too. That was, I mean, I think I wrote at some point during the offseason they couldn't find a quarterback with the GPS. Like they just they couldn't impact anybody. It was not. We didn't have much fun watching that football team last
The safest place in the league was
it really was.
The Patriots
It really was.
defensive line. That's what
my old ass could have stayed healthy in the pocket against them.
Yeah, well, I don't know. You're having trouble standing. You're making that same noise when you sit down. As am I, so I guess I can't really say anything.
Yeah, right.
Let's move on. Carlton Davis. I gave him a B+, and here's the contract. 3 years, base value of $54 million, maximum value of $60 million, $34.5 million guaranteed. Again, lop off that last year. It's really a 2-year deal when you look at where the guaranteed money is. He is, as much as you will find across the league, a man-to-man cornerback. He allowed the 4th lowest. Here's a next-gen stat from our pal Taylor Kyle. I don't know if Taylor tweeted this, but I found this from Next Gen Stats, and I think he used to work there or something. Davis allowed the 4th lowest completion percentage when playing man-to-man coverage last season in Detroit. He is big. He's a good tackler. He is a perfect scheme fit for a defense that, as much as it's changing and it's attacking, still, when Mike Vrabel was a head coach in Tennessee, played a top 10 rate of man coverage when he was running the Titans. So he's an ideal number 2 corner who would start for most, if not all, teams in the league. Downsides of this deal, which again, I give a B+. Like this is a set it and forget it, pay him, he starts. There's a trickle-down effect of how good it will be to have him and Christian Gonzalez as your 2 starting corners. He turns 29 in September. He's missed about 4 games per year the last 4 seasons. He is now being paid like a top 10 corner by average annual value. Only 13th in guarantees once Charvarius Ward's contract comes in. Outstanding moment for agency yesterday, by the way. I don't know if you saw me tweet about this.
Yeah, I did.
Charvarius Ward signs about like 3 hours after. Goes to the Colts, used to be with the Niners, before that the Chiefs. He gets the same framework, 3 years as Carlton Davis, $60 million maximum value. But he gets $500,000 more in guaranteed money because screw that guy, I want a little bit more.
Yep.
He got it. Good for him. So again, I like the addition. It fixes the position, the scheme fit there. Like you do not have to worry about cornerback if you were the Patriots. I still think they're going to replace the nickel. They were in on a couple of guys that ended up getting paid more than they even wanted to go. But this is seamless fit. I would have preferred Tre'Davious Ward, but 2 years of Carlton Davis, knowing what you're going to get, good by me.
Yeah, good football player. The injury thing is real. You're gonna just plan on him missing a month, whether that's in consecutive weeks or whether that's spread out over the course of the season. That's been his history the entire time that he's been in the league since 2018. I wrote about this last night. 84 passes defense since coming into the league, which is fourth during that time for cornerbacks. And as someone told me in the league, based on playing on the opposite side from Gonzalez, it's like he has a chance to eat because people aren't throwing at Gonzo, and this guy gets his hands on the football on the other side. So for a team that couldn't turn opponents over and haven't been able to the last couple of years, like, does Carlton Davis end up with 5 or 6 picks next year because people are going to have to throw it in his general direction, and he tends to be around the football? Like, I could see that, and that makes a big difference. I can't. I gave it a B+ too. Like I too was in the Tre'Davious Ward first candidate, and I did think about DJ Reed, although the more I looked into Reed, and he's been incredibly consistent his entirety of his NFL career, like literally he's been the same guy pretty much year in and year out. He's a little undersized and he has been healthy. And I'm just like, well, now it feels like you get to a point when you're that size, but the body just says, as we've seen with like John Jones, perhaps, like your body just says, nah, you know what? We're not meant to run into bigger humans time and time again, and it ends up catching up to you.
Carlton Davis is also what Mike Vrabel wanted in a lot of guys when I was talking with agents coming out, and he's laying out some part of his vision, and you talk to team people, and okay, this matches up, this has to be true. Some MFers, like some guys who were just going to run through your face, and in running through someone's face, Carlton Davis broke his jaw last year. Yeah. So it sometimes has its downsides, but football's not normal. We'll move on. The point is, he's the type of player Vrabel wants, in addition to filling a position of need, in addition to someone that there is no projection, there is no worry or unknown as we have with Milton Williams, who's younger, and we all get that. But Carlton Davis is plug and play, man coverage, press corner, what they wanted, what they got. The money, again, is corners, which has been a depressed market, by the way. Like whenever Gonzalez hits the market, I think he's extension eligible next year. Is it after 3 years?
Yep.
So that's going to take off again. For now, especially a year from now, I think this deal will look fine. Granted, a year from now, he'll be on the verge of turning 30, which is danger zone for corners. But what they needed, what he'll give them when they play that type of scheme is really good. And it fixes the position.
Yeah, I'll just give you one other thing that I had in my story yesterday, where what the league is saying. And Scout told me, he's like, supremely confident player, plays that way. So to your point of like just that, like he believes that he's awesome, and he's had moments where he has been awesome, more moments than less in that regard. So there's a swagger element to him that he backs up with 6 years of tape now.
Yeah. Robert Spillane, I have a good feeling you and I are going to disagree. I landed on a C for Robert Spillane. 3 years, base value of $33 million. He is a linebacker, for those familiar. Last 2 years in Vegas, started super productive. Before that, the Steelers. 2018 started with Vrabel. So 3 years, $303 million. Max value of $37.5 million. $20.6 million guaranteed. This makes Robert Spillane the 7th highest paid linebacker. Another market that is rebounding, which is good for them. They should have been paid more this entire time, talking the last 5 years of the league. By average annual value, 7th highest paid linebacker in the league by average annual value is Robert Spillane. When I main highly productive starter in Vegas, this was his stat line last year. 158 tackles, 2 interceptions, 2 sacks, 7 pass breakups. So he represents, like Milton Williams does, a pivot for Vrabel in positional prototype. He's only 6'1". He's only 229 pounds. He's a little bit better side to side than your Juwan Bentleys and Jelani Tavais. And like a lot of these players we mentioned, he's got a connection to Vrabel, who's an undrafted free agent, signed with the Titans in Tennessee, played there 1 year, goes to Pittsburgh, has some injury history, finally blooms in Vegas. The issue I have with this contract, not only just the money for a guy who's finally healthy, and good for him. He was a captain in Vegas, finally producing, rooting for everybody here, is that there's too much overlap for guys who are separated by an inch or two in height and 30 pounds in weight with Juwan Bentley as downhill players who tackle well, get picked on in coverage a little bit, shouldn't be trusted all that much in man-to-man. if that's the guy you're signing to be your new linebacker, that's such a huge departure from Jamie and Sherwood, who I know is their first choice. And that's fine. He also got re-signed. What are you going to do? It felt a little rich in the moment. And then diving deeper into him, I'm going, don't you just have like a bigger version of this in-house, even if Bentley's not a Vrabel guy yet?
And I would tell you that that's probably because Brentley's not going to be a Vrabel guy. I think, and I'm not basing that on any information I have from the team. I think they've signaled that the Sherwood interest and Spillane was their pivot off of Sherwood, because you're
Mhm.
right, Sherwood was the guy they wanted. But Sherwood saw the contract Nick Bolton got. The Jets were almost letting him get to free agency, and they were like, okay, well, that's what it's going to take, so we'll do it. And they did the
Yep.
3 and 45, 30 guaranteed. So their pivot was Spillane, who's stayed healthy the last 2 years. He's been a terrific player. I love the way he plays. As I mentioned, he tackles everybody: running backs, receivers, tight ends, quarterbacks, the popcorn vendor. Like,
There it
he
is.
hits everything in sight. Our mutual acquaintance, Brian Hoyer, said he's one of the best teammates he's ever had. Absolutely loves the dude, and whatever. There's a personal relationship there, but like, I think
Why don't you think Brian Hoyer and I are friends? You were about to say friends, and then you pivoted to
because I don't think we're friends.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, we're acquaintances. I mean, I like him. He likes me, but like, I'm not hanging out with him.
Well, you'd be
You
right.
know?
That's how I would describe my relationship with Brian as well. Okay, it's good. I
Yeah.
just I saw you hesitate and thought it was
No,
a me
I
thing.
hesitated for me. I didn't know I would, I don't want to speak for both of us, but I did. Um, so again, doing some sort of recon on him, and someone who coordinated an offense against him said, like, early on, we felt like we could get him because he flies, right? Like, he wants to get to the football, like see ball, hit ball, like that whole thing. And then second time we saw him, wasn't that easy. So he's developing and learning still at his age. So yeah, I mean, for everybody, health is a concern, and he's had some injury history. But he started all 34 games in Vegas, and he played really good football. I actually thought, and then talking to some people, they felt like he was much better in coverage this past year than he's been. Does that carry over here? Look, you said what, Sherwood's 216, I think,
Yeah.
and he might even be a little lighter than that, but he's a former safety, converted from college safety to linebacker. Spillane is 229, but probably more like 225, 222. And Vrabel's idea of what they want and what you saw in Tennessee, and it was a limited run for David Long in Tennessee because he couldn't stay healthy. He was like 220 pounds, 5'10", but sort of that same like heat-seeking missile side to side. Just, this guy's that to me. And so, yeah, does he hold up at that size? Well, he has the last couple of years, so maybe the worm's turned for him. I don't know. I like the player a lot. And same thing, like, okay, if it doesn't work, what are you really eating? It's like, it's not that. If you have to eat on, if 5 of these guys all end up sucking and you have to eat it, we can have a different conversation. But in the moment, like, I don't feel like the contract is too bloated. And it's the same thing. It's the you have a need, you have the money, and it's free agency. So it all ends up to a contract that makes people go, oh, that's a little steep, but that's what it is. I mean, how would you have felt if they did, if Sherwood gets to free agency, he's probably getting north of what he got from the Jets. Would you be okay if the Patriots said 3 years and $48 million for Jamie and Sherwood at 216 pounds? Like,
Well, Sherwood's younger, and that's
yeah.
the
Oh,
other
yeah, yeah.
comparison
There's
I have with
was there a
Spillane.
4 or 5 year age difference there for sure?
Yes, and so Spillane being 29 with an injury history that recently, again, good for him, has rectified. He, like you said, started every game in the last 2 years. I just wonder if that's the peak. If you're now buying on the back end as Spillane starts to decline, as a lot of players do, 29, 30, and this isn't the case for everyone, but I would feel better about buying on the peak as Sherwood continues to ascend, especially for a guy who just changed positions, even if it is a little bit more money, because I also know that introduces a totally new element to this defense. Like a sideline to sideline linebacker. I don't know the last time the Patriots had one. Anytime that we got, oh, this is going to kill me. There was someone who I remember talking about like, some backup linebacker who started for them in the last few years. And it was like, oh, this guy brings an element of speed. I'm like, if we're calling him fast, we don't realize what fast is anymore for linebackers because we've just been
Yeah.
dealing with these lumbering guys for so long. And Dante Hightower is an all-time great. He's a lumbering guy. Juwan Bentley's had some very good seasons. Lumbering guy. Sherwood would not have been anywhere remotely close to that. And Spillane, can cover some ground, but Pete Carroll taking over in Vegas, another coach, you want your own guys. He could have used a speedy linebacker, and he said, thanks, but no thanks. And Spillane cashes in. Good for him. The redundancy here and the age also goes for Carlton Davis. If I want to stay consistent here, right? Like Ward's a little bit younger. TJ Reed would have been a little bit younger. I don't like the size there, as you mentioned. It's just, are you buying at the right time on these guys or whatever other players, even if more expensive, been better buys?
But can I push back against the age thing? Because,
No.
huh. So I'm gonna anyway.
Yeah, yes, yeah, of course. Obviously.
Their locker room was filled with children last year. From a maturity level and from an age standpoint, they needed more guys. They needed a little bit more veteran influence, and they're getting that. And again, from all accounts, from all the digging that I've done, they're getting guys that are going to be good in that room. Not just he's 28, but he's a jerk. No, he's 28 and he's been considered a good teammate. He's 29, but he's considered a good teammate. And they need that because that thing was so messy last year, in my opinion. And I don't know if you share the same, but I just think there was a lot of immaturity there. And I think some of the guys, and I think there's some guys that are supposed to be leaders that weren't leaders, or that's just not who they are. And so they're miscast in that role. And I think, again, I'm paying a little extra for that. And so I'm paying a little extra for Spillane. And if I get 2 years of something representative of what he gave for the last 2 years in Vegas, or even if it's at 90% or 85% of that, I think that is, for the way they want to play, I think that's an upgrade.
That's fair. Give him a 76 instead of a 75. Yeah. Still C, but not a C plus. I want to ask you this, because this has also come up as people just reach for criticism, as people are wont to do, and you can criticize the team. I do it here all the time. My point is I try to be fair. There's no, partisan hackery here, for lack of a better way to phrase it. The complaint that the Patriots are only targeting players they're familiar with, that have connections to the staff, I hear and go, yeah, that's how the business goes.
Yes.
Like, look, I just mentioned Pete Carroll wants to bring in his own guys. They trade for Geno Smith, is the first big splash that the Raiders make. This goes for any new regime that is coming in, because not only is it just you like the guys you tend to work with over time, but there's less of an uncertainty there. When you pay these players, you want to know their work ethic. You want to know how they deal with injury and adversity and interact in a locker room. Do you have any problem with them signing a bunch of quote unquote Vrabel guys or McDaniels guys? Or because there's another coming up here as their newest receiver.
No, I have no problem with it whatsoever. And you mentioned McDaniels. McDaniels also was the one who brought Spillane to Vegas, and he only got to coach him for 6 games or whatever until he got fired. But so there's plenty of shared history there, and I'm all for it. The one guy that of this group that don't have shared history with is Milton Williams, the one that they spent the most money on. But in general, I want to know what the guy's baseline for work ethic is. I want to know if I'm a yeller that the guy can take me yelling at him. I want to have an idea of how I can approach this player and get the best out of him. And the only way you know that, and you can assure yourself of that, is if you've already had experience with the guy. Perfectly fine. And let's face it too, Terrell Williams, does he cross over with Carlton Davis for 1 year in Detroit? He does. He was a defensive line coach. He wasn't the DC. He wasn't in the secondary room. So they know each other, and they know he spoke highly of Carlton Davis to the current Patriots brass, but they weren't in the same meeting room all the time. He wasn't dealing with Carlton Davis on a day-to-day basis. So that's a loose one. There's a loose connection there.
But enough. I mean, that matters.
Yeah,
and
sure, absolutely.
I also think they would have gone after him anyway, right? The profile of a man-to-man corner who's big, physical, all that.
But then you go to Terrell and say, hey, you were with him. Yeah, baller. Right. He's exactly what you talked about, what you want. That's that guy. Okay, perfect. Let's go.
And a guy the Lions targeted, for what it's worth, is a team that has completely embodied their head coach's attitude and former play style and what they're about, and the way that the Patriots will soon enough with Vrabel. If he could fit and play in Detroit, he should be a fit here. Okay, I already teased him. Mack Hollins, new receiver. I'll just tell you off the top. I gave this a B-. It's fine. 2 years, $8.4 million base value, maximum value of 10.4, so $2 million in incentives. Only $3.5 million guaranteed, which says, he's probably going to make the roster, just like the Patriots' current depth chart does. But if things really go south, which they shouldn't, they could cut him if they wanted. Last year
Yeah.
in Buffalo, his only year in Buffalo, 31 catches, 378 yards, 5 touchdowns. This is a big-bodied 31-year-old receiver on his 6th team. His only season where he cleared 400 yards, he did so in a big way. That was 2022 under Josh McDaniels in Las Vegas. 57 catches for 690 very nice yards. So this is also someone that I don't know how many features are going to be done about this in training camp for the spring.
Yes.
A little tease here for you, Mack Hollins. The man does not wear shoes outside of the football field. He prefers to eat with his hands and not use utensils. And he will avoid house cats, believing, at least he claims he believes, they will steal your soul. So
I
if you
think
have
I
a
agree
cat,
with it. I actually, he and I are simpatico on that one.
I am as well. I have been on full court resistance from my wife, who would love a cat
No.
any day now. Not going to
Okay.
happen. How do you think they get 9 lives? They steal people's souls, as
Yes.
Mack Hollins described this morning. When he comes over, he doesn't want to pet your cat. He's not going to use any of your spoons or forks. He will not wear shoes, but he will and might record a TikTok doing some home improvement or life hacks. This is the new Mack Hollins, who is also regarded on the football field, most importantly, great locker room guy, blocks his ass off in the running game, and is a core special teamer. There's a reason he's on his 6th team. It's because all of that still doesn't add up to a core player, but I think someone who is certainly going to be additive. And if there's a coach, a situation that can get more out of him than most teams have, it's Josh McDaniels. And here with the Patriots, good, not great signing.
Yeah. So here's where, again, I quibble with you and your grading system. You gave Milton Williams a B. Give Mack Hollins a B minus. And I know you factored, the contract. Again, free agency, man. Like, it is what it is. I say it's a B because desperately needed another adult in that wide receiver room. He is that, even if he wears Fred Flintstone outfits to pre-games. I think he has a chance to be a little bit more a part of the offense than, again, to what you pointed out with the Josh McDaniels season. And if you talk to the people in Buffalo, and I'm not just talking the media types that I know from Buffalo, but I'm talking from the football people, they wanted him back. And, they have some hoops they have to jump through in terms of contractual situations and whatnot to make everything work. So this is probably just a tick richer than they wished to have paid. But, like, they liked him a lot. And Josh turned to him a lot late last year. And some of that was out of necessity because Amari Cooper didn't pan out and those sorts of things. But, like, he delivered. He delivered for them in some big moments. So, yeah, I like the player. I like the fit. I mean, I'm not predicting he's catching 75 passes next year. That they didn't answer they need a number 1 or a number 2. But, if Kayshon Boutte or Javon Baker thinks that they're just going to walk in, they got a role and they're going to get all these snaps, I got news for you, because this guy, he does some more stuff that you haven't necessarily been willing to do or shown you can do. So that's good. Bring it up, guys, or get out.
So the last point is the most salient one. Your first one.
Oh, you just blew away. Yeah, I hate all your points except for the last one.
No, I'm saying that was the
You're
best.
like, actually, that's a good point.
If you're going to quibble with my grades, at least argue for something more than a 2 or 3 point difference. You can't quibble with my B minus and then go B. That's not even raises to the line of a quibble. It's like a question. Like, oh, can I ask you about this? I thought you were going to come in with an A minus or higher. To which point, if you really want to make the case, fine. But again, I'll reiterate, an A for me is a great player and a great contract. Mack Hollins, obviously not a great player. Not even really a good one. Again, considering 400 yards in a season has escaped him every year of his career, except for one. But for the reasons you laid out, which were well articulated, even if you want to you should have given him a B, not a B minus, you meanie. Fine. Yeah, I agree with you.
If I earned a B and you give me a B minus, I hate you. You're not a good teacher.
Sounds like that happened a lot.
Yeah, well, for me, it was A's and A minuses, because
this, though, as much as any other signing, embodies the culture point that you made and has really been at the forefront of their minds. You've reported on that more than I have, and I heard it less, but I think it's a real good one because Vrabel has emphasized play demeanor and commitment and finish. And this is a guy, there's no questions about that. And to the point about Kayshon Boutte, who's still an ascending player, I think a career 4, pretty much like Mack Hollins is. Mm-hmm. He can be an X, man. Like, he's not going to have a mutant powers, but he can play X,
yes.
man. And as a big-bodied 6'4" guy, red zone target, which again, not blowing anyone away. No one is racing to sign Mack Hollins the way they did with Milton Williams. But if you're Kayshon Boutte, you can't slack off because Mack Hollins is also blocking better than you. He's playing more special teams. It is good to have that competition, as you said at the end. And that's the last of my compliments for you. All right, the last one, because we're not going to do grades for Josh Dobbs and Chris Tonga. Thanks for coming. It's 1 year, $2.17 million. You could get cut. You might be here for the whole year. I don't know. And Josh Dobbs, like, very nice guy. They were always going to sign a veteran backup. I am tired already of the Joe Milton trade talk. I'm sorry. It makes for good Twitter and it makes for a good talk radio. That's cool. The man won a preseason game in January. I loved watching him run around and rifle the ball all over the place. It does not convince me in any way, shape, or form he is ready to compete for a starting job, or that any other team in the league will believe that he is ready as well.
Can I show you one of my favorite tweets of the entirety of yesterday?
Oh,
and quite frankly, just maybe of the entire year.
Wait, pause. Are you going to be mean here to a fellow media member? Or
maybe a little bit.
Okay.
We're not allowed to do that? Well, I'm not. It wasn't my tweet. I'm just telling you that
I understand. I just want the people to know I'm not co-signing with you here. I'm going to quibble.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Jordan Schultz, NFL insider.
Oh, never mind. Okay, go ahead.
Tweeted at some point last night, sources, the Patriots have had discussions on trading quarterback Joe Milton and would like to trade him to the right situation to continue his development in the NFL. And then there was something else that I didn't clip. Paul Kuharsky, who's worked for a number of outlets and now has his own website, covers the Tennessee Titans. He's a terrific reporter. Sparred with Mike Vrabel every day for as long as Vrabel was there. Quote tweets it. Yeah, they love him so much they signed Josh Dobbs. The spin is so dizzying. Jordan's tweet is sponsored by Dave Hendrickson41, Milton's agent, who edited it for him. Enough with all this bullshit. Let's call it out more regularly.
Okay, I take back everything I said. I got so scared.
He came in hot, baby.
The finger guns for the YouTube audience. Woo. Look, I thought you were coming after one of our own because there are people in Patriots media. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, whatever. They might be dumb. I have dumb opinions as well. I thought you were just going to have some friendly fire here. I didn't want any part of that. I love all of that smoke, and I don't even know Paul, but I respect him based on tweets like that.
Yeah,
and it's completely fair and reasonable. Like that was, and I said it last night on TV. This isn't because it's prompted by you. That tweet is Joe Milton's agent trying to stir some conversation. And if you want him, you got to get in now. The Patriots are already talking, even though Greg has already, I think, said that from the Senior Bowl or sometime recently. But Joe Milton thinks he should start. He's cool. I hope he has that type of confidence. You need it to survive, you need it to thrive, let alone survive in the NFL, especially playing quarterback. But God help me if anyone proposes any Joe Milton deal that nets anything above a 6th-round pick, which is what he was a year ago. And after the top 5-6 quarterbacks, a bad draft and bad quarterback class. So I guess we did a Joe Milton segment. All right, Morgan Moses. He is a 34-year-old man who played right tackle for the Jets last year and did better than you think. Did better than I think. I thought, until I really studied and took a little bit more a closer look at the Patriots games against the Jets and one other game later in the season. I don't remember if they played. I think it was Miami. And he signed a 3-year, $24 million deal with $11 million guaranteed. The funniest number there is the 3 years, which even if you lop off the last one, you're like, they're really going to keep him until he's 36? I don't know, maybe, because this is the Patriots, and this is how they do business on the offensive line. Yeah. So I like this deal because, again, when you look at certain metrics and not just the eye test, he played just as well as Dan Moore did, a 26-year-old left tackle, formerly of the Steelers, now with the Titans, who A, got more money per year than Ronnie Stanley, B, cost $12.5 million more per year than Morgan Moses, and received more than $37 million more guaranteed than Morgan Moses. So if this is a comparable player, at least for 2025, because Moses is clearly a stopgap at right tackle where he should start and play for the Patriots. If you get 1 year out of this guy, and he's also a mentor and the professionalism and all the culture stuff we've been talking about all episode, huge win, great value. Of course, the big question is, can a 34-year-old dude who you just signed and has some experience with Todd Downing, the Patriots' new receivers coach, who just was with the Jets, and Morgan has been around forever, that this is not a huge question. Will that continue? Because it was only 2 years ago, a broken down Riley Reif, who was much worse the year before he got to New England than Moses was last year. Didn't even start for the Bears until he had to by injury. got here and wasn't even broken down. You just couldn't even move him. Like, you needed a tow truck to get him out of there. Lasted 2 practices, non-padded at right tackle. That plan went up in smoke. I don't think that's going to happen with Morgan Moses, but there's a reason he got that much less at right tackle than Dan Moore did at left tackle, because there's no concern about that with a 26-year-old. Even if they were comparable players a year ago, 2025 could be a different story. The Patriots are just betting that it won't be. And if they're right, this is a huge sign. This is a great deal.
Above average pass blocker, even at the age of 34.
Mhm.
The concern is obviously injuries, because he's been incredibly durable throughout the course of his career. But 2023, the torn pec, and then last year he had like sprain, fracture of the knee. To his credit, he missed like 2 games for that injury, which is absurd. Like, this is the kind of stuff that we keep guys out for half the season, and this dude was like, "Nope, I'm playing." Will Parkinson on the All 32 that we taped yesterday was talking about there was a game he played last year where he said he couldn't feel either one of his arms, but he played. Like, he's just different that way. He like, now maybe that's actually sometimes to a fault, because maybe he's not the same player when he can't feel your arms and you're playing the football game. But like, that sort of toughness, you want every one of your guys on your roster to have that sort of willingness to play. And he was doing it last year for a Jets team that was out of the mix pretty much before the mix even started to come together, right? Like, they were not a playoff team, but he played, instead of saying, "I'm going to protect myself, I know I'm going to be a free agent." Jets wanted to keep him, wanted him to return there. He was looking for a change. I gave it a C plus, and the only reason I gave it a C plus is because I do wonder, back-to-back years with the injuries, if Mr. Durability, Mr. Tough Guy, his body is finally just saying, "All right, like, what are we doing here?" But in terms of what you talked about, what he can do for someone like Caden Wallace isn't going to learn from Chuksa Okorafor this year.
No.
In terms of, this is a different guy to have in your room that if Caden Wallace is smart, he's inviting him over to dinner, or inviting himself over to Morgan's house for dinner every other night to just pick his brain, because that's the kind of guy that can really help a young player sort of take the next step and understand, this is what it takes to do what I've done now for 12, 13 years in the league.
And the Morgan Moses / Caden Wallace playing at right tackle is leaps and bounds better than what they had even a year ago, right? Like, you can live with that at right tackle. One guy gets hurt, the other was the 3rd round pick. It's a second year. You expect gets healthy, can develop a little bit more. That's fine. Ideally, you still have a firm, definitive starter at left tackle that may or may not continue. And our last segment is going to be, okay, what's next? But I'll live with that, because last year it was Chuksa Okorafor at left tackle, changing positions, then Vidarian Lowe, whose ceiling is a swing tackle in the league. Oh, and then maybe the 3rd round pick, who also will have to change positions. Shocker, that went to shit. So then you have a right tackle in Demontre Jacobs. We don't have to rehash the whole thing, but was cut down day signing and then thrust in that position for a long, long time. This is better. It's still not great. Again, only $24 million for an offensive tackle, premium position. And the difference between left and right is gone, by the way. This is not like, oh, they cheaped out because it's a right tackle. They get the same money. Pressure in your face is just as big of a problem as pressure at your back if you're a quarterback. I just like it for the reasons we outlined. I give it a B-. So I might even up it to a B. Because, again, the pass protection, you mentioned it, and I should have said it off the top. That's been his most stable skill set year after year after year. He's an above-average pass protector. The Patriots did not have average pass protectors anywhere last year, aside from a couple Michael Onwenu games. That was it. That just changed and should change for the foreseeable future. But as I mentioned, left tackle, it's a big shrug right now. Like, are you just banking on them drafting someone as it stands right now, March 11th? Someone in the 1st round, and them just saying, hopefully this is good enough? Or is Cam Robinson on the horizon? What do you see?
Yeah, no, I don't think I think they're more now in line with, based on what happened and how stupid the market was. And yesterday, like, I talk about overpays, but I'm not paying Dan Moore 82 million, 50, whatever guaranteed. And Cam Robinson, it's pretty clear. And I think a lot of people, and me included, I had him higher up on the sort of the food chain of guys that were going to go and get overpaid in this period. And there's clearly something that's giving teams pause right now. I don't know what that is, other than I mean, if they look at the tape is enough to give you pause, but the tape should have been enough to give them pause to sign Dan Moore to that contract in Tennessee, and they did it anyway. So
Summarize Cam Robinson's market with the sound.
Yeah, it's kind of a long, drawn out sort of. What do you got?
Ugh.
Yeah. It's like, I guess. Like, is it? It's like kind of like if they did it, you'd be like, all right. I mean, yeah, you throw him in there with Vidarian. Maybe you draft a guy in the second or third round, and you know, let him duke it out in camp. But yeah, he's not good. He wasn't. You know, I mean, look, Jacksonville was like, we're not going to keep you. We'll trade you to a desperate team in Minnesota who lost Christian Darrisaw, and he had the one good game. He came in there. It was like, oh, his first game. I was like, wow, dude, you just showed up like 2 days ago and you playing a game. You balled out, and then he was wretched down the stretch and awful in the playoff game, and that's hard to get out of your mind. So
it is. I would look at the market, which again, we're recording. It's still closing in a mid-afternoon on Tuesday. Tevin Jenkins is a guy who was drafted to be a tackle with Chicago. Kicks inside to guard. He's better at guard, a little bit too late, still available for a reason. But in terms of depth and maybe some versatility, if Doug Marrone looks at him and says, I could get him to be a swing or a backup tackle, that's someone I would look at, because left guard is also as big of a question mark as left tackle, a position the Patriots are trying to throw numbers at unless they do make a signing, where it's like Cole Strange, maybe Layden Robinson. But
they were in on the indie kid who
Will Fries.
He signed in Minnesota for a big number.
5, 4, or no. Maybe it was 5. 4 or 5 for 88. 88 was the total.
Yeah.
So a lot. And again, guards are getting paid too. So this is not, oh my God, that was too much for Will Fries. Yeah, probably was. But that's what it's going to be when you get to free agency. So I feel fine if they throw numbers at guard, less so at tackle. To me, this screams, for them, the ideal plan right now is, stick and pick at 4. Hopefully that's Travis Hunter. If not, it's maybe Ted McMillan, Mason Graham. We'll save the draft talk for another day. But you have the ammo to leap back into the first round like you tried a year ago. That's when you go get the tackle. And it could be Josh Simmons. It could be Josh Connerly. It could be any number of these guys. Armand Membu, if you really want to jump back all the way at the top. You have to love them, obviously. I'm not particularly in love with any of them right now. I've got more research to do. We're both out on Will Campbell, but it's just, I do understand the segment of fans who watch all this, all the money spent. Williams here is great, and are still going, okay, so the same 2 problems and positions that dogged us the last 2 seasons are now still our top needs. How am I supposed to get excited? I go, well, your team got better, but I get it, because these are hard problems to solve. And the Patriots finally took a serious approach and still don't have those holes filled with good players.
Yeah, I agree. And even like the Chris Godwin thing, and you and I were both in on Godwin, the player.
Yes.
Coming off the injury, like he's a definite upgrade from what they have, but he's not like oh my God, field changing, defense changing receiver. I think we get into the conversation, and it's probably a deeper conversation for a different day, but like I think the idea of a number 1 receiver versus what the reality is 2 different things. And yes, like DK Metcalf can be your best receiver. Like if you plunked him into this room, yeah, he's your best guy. But he's not, to me, and to a lot of people I talk to, he's not 5'150" guy. Like there are things that you want. Like I actually don't think there are very many number 1 receivers in the league, is what I'm trying to say. And I think people start looking at some of these names or think, oh, like that guy's going to change you. Yeah, he'd make you better. And that's obviously the goal. But is he going to make the guys around him better too? Is he going to improve the vibe in the room? Like I wrote a lot about the DK character stuff. Like I never got the sense that there was a real appetite to dive in for all of that. Like maybe next year, if your roster's in a better place and some of these kids actually show like they can handle the business of being a professional football player, maybe that's when you add the dice roll kind of guy from a character perspective. But right now, that room was so bad, you just need to like, let's get pros in here. Like, I mean, I'd sign up for the Cooper Kupp type for a year just because I don't think he's even close to the same player. Even the guy that beat you for the long touchdown in Foxborough this year, I don't think he's that guy anymore. But I know what kind of work he's going to put in. and he might only catch 45 passes, but if it rubs off on Polk and Baker and Pop, and like you get some development there that you didn't get last year, then it's worth more than just the 45 catches.
So I'm glad you brought up Cooper Kupp, because I heard something last night, and this is not to be slow and dramatic and build up because there's not a huge payoff here at the end, that Cooper Kupp is a bit curious about what it would be like to play in New England. And this is because if the Rams do not find a trade partner by tomorrow, Wednesday, they'll cut him, and then he's free to sign anywhere. And I think it's important to remember, for a guy at his stage of his career who's made a lot of money, won a Super Bowl, he can kind of go wherever he wants. There's no one dictating factor that you look at a guy like Milton Williams. He's 25, hits the market for the first time. He's going to go to the highest bidder. This is a guy who's gotten pretty much everything you could want. He might want to go live somewhere warm with no state income tax, or go closer to home, or be with someone like his old college receivers coach is now in Dallas. I don't know, which also might fit some of those criteria. But he has some connections to New England. He is curious about what it would look here. How serious that interest is, I don't know. But I am more open to the Patriots possibly being a Cooper Kupp suitor, even though you look and go, there's some overlap in the slot. Demario Douglas, first of all, Demario Douglas should not keep you from signing Cooper Kupp for all the reasons you just eloquently outlined. Okay, he would be your best receiver. Figure it out. If you need to play tight bunch formations the entire season so they're both able to have two-way goes, do it. But to me, I think this would, from a perception standpoint, not necessarily on-field product, and from a culture standpoint, really change the way we look at the Patriots offseason, because this goes from anyone who's giving them a C+, B-, where I am at for right now, and they'll have the draft, and that's going to be huge, to just a solid B and above. And that's great for them. Does it happen? I don't know. I still would not count it as likely, but it sounds like he's listening, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I would have I don't. He's not dramatically changing your on-field product in terms of what, like, I don't see him as a 90, 100, 110 catch. He won the Triple Crown 3 years ago, and he hasn't come close to staying healthy for that time or having the same production. Second half of last year, he was like not involved in their offense, which is kind of crazy. But there's a lot of value add for the other stuff. And then if you can sort of squeeze some more good football out of him, even if it's not on a week-to-week basis, then I think that's something that you absolutely have to consider, should consider. And just like the Mack Hollins conversation, Pop, if you want to think that like it's just your spot, why? What have you done just yet? Oh, he caught 66. What have you done just yet? You caught 66 passes on a 4-win football team. You showed up your quarterback a few times. Like, let's come back to reality. Like, you could be something more, but you got to learn how to be something more. And this guy will push you to do that. And if it doesn't rub off on you, then you were never part of the solution anyways.
Yeah. So I've got my antenna up. That's all that is to say.
Like,
and I think the Patriots see the value. That's a guy who I don't even think you need a connection to the staff to know that. Yeah.
That works for you.
How many weird phrases do we use this time of year, by the way? I think you and I have talked about this, like kicking the tires. Why is anyone ever kicking a tire?
I think that, God.
Got my antenna up. Like,
yeah, got my antenna up. Is like, where the hell did that come from?
Yeah, it's like a broken record.
Who kicks the tires? I'm looking it up
by the
right
way,
now.
And I ask you this because I know you don't know, that when the kids are doing the motion to take a picture, it's no longer what you and I would do, hold up the old camera and then go click. It's just like your phone. You just hold it up as if you have a phone in your hand and it's empty, and that's the signal for photo. Anyway, something I thought I would teach you here today, even though you've learned a lot.
Clearly.
Cooper Kupp, they don't need to call around. High character guy, hard worker, is going to bring as much as he can. Like whatever he's got, you're going to get. That's the type of player the Patriots want. So that's where we are. All right, we have gone even long for us, which has been awesome to A, do this with you, B, for anyone else still hanging out. Please rate and review. We had some very kind reviews dropped in Apple, but the more ratings we get, and I'm open to the 2 and the 3 and the 4 stars as well as the 5, because it gives us feedback, helps us get better. Just take a second. You just spent an hour and a half with us. Just give us another minute of your thoughts, ratings, reviews, and also on YouTube. If you don't subscribe to my channel already, it's @_Andrew Callahan, my same handle on Twitter. Just go there, subscribe. We take any and all feedback. We'd love to grow. You can help us do that, as well as, of course, support our friends at PrizePicks. So rate, review, subscribe, Apple, Spotify, YouTube. We will take whatever you got. Mike Giardi, what do you have coming up?
I don't know. We're just going to continue to monitor what they're doing here. There's still plenty of football players available to add to your football team, even if they're not the kind that move the needle tremendously. And I would continue to sort of be interested in the trade market, especially depending on what happens at the wide receiver position and whether or not the Patriots are able to put more bodies in that conversation and feel better about the overall room. Because as much as they don't want to part with draft picks, it is conceivable that someone like Brandon Ayuk, for instance, who they kicked the tires on last year and would have had to give up a fairly high pick. Now, with the cost-cutting measures they're doing, is he now a third? Is he maybe a fourth? Because they just want to move off the right. So that to me is sort of where my head is at this point. And he's, the Ayuk is an interesting conversation just because he blew out the knee pretty bad in late October. So you're probably not getting, this is the conversation we had about Kendrick Bourne, although Ayuk is a significantly higher grade of player. It's just, you're not getting the same guy next year. He might be back. He might be back at the beginning of October. Who knows? He could be back in the beginning of September. Some of these guys, they rebound quickly. But the player himself, the guy that, if you watch San Francisco, that was the elite route runner who just shook people left and right, who beat man coverage all the time, not necessarily by going over the top, but just because he sets things up beautifully. You probably don't see that guy until 2026. But is it worth it? If you get him here, convince him that he likes it here, and then all of a sudden, oh, by the way, with the way the receiver market continues to go, he's at $26 million a year or something like that. That's for a number one receiver. That's, if you're not going to draft one, that's pretty cheap. So that'd be something I keep an eye on.
Yes, and I think front office members too, the people I've spoken with, there's a little bit of a split. Some guys are a little bit higher in the Metcalf proposal, which is obviously not going to happen anymore.
Yep.
Same with Ayuk, and it matters what Mike Vrabel thinks. And Ryden Cowden, and then comes Elliott Wolf and Alonzo Highsmith and everybody else, and we'll see what goes from there. So this idea that they're just interested but don't really want to commit, sometimes there's a conflict internally, and that's fine. That's how it should be. But that leads to either a delay or a hesitation or just a failure to get the player in the first place, which obviously did not happen with Milton Williams. But I'm with you. Anyone who, and I think this is a minority, I think most people are happy, as they should be, with the Patriots free agent haul, which is mostly done. Okay. But if you are still upset about the receiver and offensive tackle, I get it. I would say just take a breath. There's a long way to go. And sometimes the draft, as much as we're all talking about the college kids coming into the league, is as much an opportunity for teams to use it as a deadline for, hey, if you want our picks, we're about to use them. So give us a better offer or ask for less, and we'll meet you there. And that's when that happens. Day 1, day 2 of the draft. These big receiver trades have happened before. Maybe one's waiting for the Patriots. No guarantees. Just be open to it. It's March 11th. They're better than they were 2 days ago. That's the point.
Yeah, and my last thought on that too is so he's a pain in the butt too. And no, he is. So
you told me, I should say.
Well, we're talking about the character fit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I would tell you that it's easier to absorb a character flawed guy for a 4th round pick than it is for your 38th overall pick, which is probably what it would have taken to get DK Metcalf in there, in addition to then turning around and giving him 5 years and $150 million. Ayuk's contract is already set up. We're not renegotiating anything. You're coming off a knee injury. You're going to come in here. You're going to show us you're healthy. We're going to show you that you want to play with Drake May. Next year goes great. Then we can have a conversation about reworking your deal and adding years and more guaranteed money and so forth. But it's a lot easier to swallow a contract and a personality like that if the cost is significantly less.
Yeah. All right, go kick some tires. Go put your antenna up. Go walk the dog against some pews, if you please. It is gorgeous out.
Yes.
And I know I'll remain inside. Good for us, though. No breaking news. So we should end now, just in case we have some more.
I like that. I'll be staying inside. Why aren't you go outside?
I don't know. It's
a walk.
Tuesday of free agency. I have something planned tomorrow night. I'm actually going to the Celtics game. So that is my treat to myself this week, is to get out, go with my dad, brother-in-law.
So that's when they'll trade for CD Lamb.
Well, last year when I went to cover Celtics Lakers, they signed Alex Van Pelt, which I found out walking down Causeway and peeping into, I think, Tavern in the Square at a TV. I was like, what does this say? I haven't heard of this. I haven't gotten any notifications. Oh, my phone had died. So then I got to write and learn and send texts and make calls to people around the league about Alex Van Pelt from the press box of Celtics Lakers. Didn't cover that game, obviously, because I'm writing all Patriots stories. And thankfully, because they lost by 20, I didn't miss much. But anyway, yes, the answer is yes. Something big and Maybe it's Ayuk. Happens tomorrow night.
Could be.
Cool. All right. Appreciate you as always, pal. Thanks for the time.